Well, hello everyone. My name is Vivian Alexandra from Quantum Alexandra LLC, and I'm here with my dear friend, Farah Vickery. So this is like the first interview I'm doing, and it's the first of many. And I'm so excited to be here and for you all to be listening on this call. Both Farah and I felt that it was important to talk about some things, especially with regards to the body, anchoring in the 5D in the body with everything that's going on. So we hope that this video and this conversation will be informative for you all. So I'm just going to do a brief introduction about myself. Again, my name is Vivian Alexandra. I'm an intuitive psychic medium and channeler of the quantum field. I also am an author of My Journey Through Ascension, a writer. I also create channeled artwork and also provide one-on-one sessions with anyone that needs any extra support during this time. So now I'm going to pass it on to my friend, Farah.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited about our conversations today. My name is Farah Vickery. I am an energetic intuitive. I've also been a yoga instructor for over 10 years. I specialize in functional movement as well as medical astrology. So my work is really in combining both of those in order to help people really embody and just connect with their bodies through yoga practice. I also work as a television producer. So, like Vivian Alexandra, I have a lot of different hats that I wear, but I am very excited to talk about this today.
Yeah, well, let's just jump in, shall we?
Let's do it.
Oh my gosh. So before hopping on here, I just kind of took some time to connect and I asked, what was important for people to know with regards to anchoring the 5D body. And I guess even before we just got on this call, we were just talking about a little bit about how people think that being spiritual means that it's more up here and not really focused on the body, and how that's a huge misconception, especially with everything that's going on now. Focusing on our bodies is actually the most critical thing we can do. So I don't know if you want to start off from your perspective, Vera.
Sure. I really do think, and as someone who's been kind of going on this spiritual journey for several years, I when you jump into spirituality, immediately it's like learning everything you can about what's beyond the body, right? So a lot of the first book that I read, I read a lot of Joe Dispenza and I read a lot of the book Journey of Souls. So it's almost like when you're on that spiritual journey, you're learning about the soul as a separate entity. So a lot of times that's kind of where it starts. And what I've learned over the last few years is that in order to really reach that spiritual capacity that you're after, you have to feel it in your body. At the end of the day, I think I've really learned that the soul that you have, your soul chose the body that you're in. And you're here for a specific purpose in your body. And so I think part of the journey of spirituality is coming back to a point where you're really happy and satisfied with the body that you're in and working in the physical realm. So 5D consciousness, I think, is something that a lot of people are talking about. And this is, again, going above what you experience as reality or even creating your own reality. But at the same time, you're still living and experiencing a physical reality in your body. So I think the beauty is going to be moving forward is marrying these two parts of ourselves, the soul and the body. And then I think 5D is really going to be when you can truly connect these two halves and create an experience from there.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And as you were talking about that, I was reminded of the topic of soul braiding. I don't know if you're aware of that, but it's really what's happening now is that for so long we've been so fractal, right? Like pieces of our consciousness were just other places, other dimensions, and we were so turned off, right? But
Mhm.
now it's about being aware of all those aspects and like slowly pulling them in and healing them one by one and bringing all these strands together to form a sort of braid, but then bringing it through the body and then anchoring it to the ground. So that's really critical, because if you're not grounded, it's easy to feel like lightheaded. It's easy to feel weak in your body. It's easy to feel like even disassociating with reality itself. And so that's so critical to really be in your body, but also take care of your body. It's hydrating well, resting well. It's listening to the intelligence of your body, right? That knows what it wants. Many times we just have to get out of the way. And so it's sitting with your body and asking your body, what food do I need to eat right now? Am I low in any vitamins or minerals? Like, is there anything I need to adjust in my diet? Should I be taking maybe some multivitamins or supplements as well? And what exercises maybe is needed at that moment? Because what I also found is that as like those strands are coming in, some of them like have trauma, that it's trying to be released, not just from those lives, but also from your own body, from your own, anything that's been trapped in your cells is asking to be released right now. And so there can be like a lot of bleed through. I don't know if you've experienced that, but it's like suddenly feeling anxious out of nowhere, feeling scared, or having a lot of flashbacks about certain things, especially at night. I find that it can be really heightened at night when the mind is more quiet. And so being able to really take care of yourself during that time is so critical.
Absolutely. And I'd have to agree too. The feelings, especially lately, and a lot of the astrology, the things that are happening energetically are pushing us into new territory. And so I think our bodies are trying to keep up with that. And our minds too. And it's like reconciling the things that we're feeling, anxiety, or just being worried and not having a reason why, and those kinds of things that are coming up, especially at night. And it's like your mind isn't even racing it about a particular thing, because you can't name the thing in your body that you're feeling. You're just, that you have this anxiety, right? And I think a lot of that is from the body being pelted with this energy, solar flares that are happening, just the astrology that is moving through our system, and those energetics that are being pushed into the earth space. But I want to also touch on, while you were talking, I had this moment of, there are two different things that we can discuss in terms of physicality, right? There's the person who has no real acknowledgement of what they're thinking and what they're feeling in their body from a conscious perspective. And I think that is like still living in very much a 3D reality. Like the people who are aware that they have a body, but nothing beyond that. The ones who are not thinking about their own thoughts. And then there is the physicality that happens once you've gone through some kind of spiritual awakening or spiritual breakthrough. And that's the realization where you can think about your physical presence and your reality in deeper terms. Like you were saying, like you were mentioning about the I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
That's okay. You're talking about like being aware, that
Yeah.
being consciously aware of yourself and of your body.
You had mentioned something too when you were talking about
Soul
that,
braiding?
the soul braiding, and bringing in the feelings, and cleansing it as it comes through. But I also think too, it's like it's having the awareness that you have this ability to shape physical reality. And it's this spectrum, right? You're like at the beginning and before awakening, and all you have is physicality. And it's kind of neat how we come full circle to the other side of it, where it's a different kind of physicality, right?
Yeah.
Trying to grasp or to get to when we have these conversations, and like the difference between the two, and understanding, like having people realize and understand what the difference is.
Yeah, definitely. Oh my gosh, there's so much of that to unpack there, and I'm trying to figure out where to even begin.
Mm-hmm.
It really is coming back home to yourself. but it, like you said, it's a totally different physical reality. I feel like things are constantly shifting, that you wake up in a whole different reality and the rules are different.
Hmm.
Like what worked before, like even a week ago, doesn't work anymore. I'm noticing that shift a lot, and it's about coming back to your body, but also kind of like, just as we were programmed, right? Certain inverted things, we can unprogram that and we can insert our own code
Hmm.
instead. Because this is like, it's like the movie The Matrix, right? Like this is reality, but it's not all that there is. There's like multiple layers stacked up on against each other, on each other. And it's a lot more different than what we thought. And so it's, if you're like a character in a game, then it's like, then you can choose what kind of person you become. And you choose then what codes you're going to insert, instead of being the other way around, of just having things happen to you without having any control, any awareness, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's, I mean, it's like, I think, it's a very complex thing. And for some reason, what's coming up right now is also like, when you get into the spiritual journey, yes, you start healing things, you start addressing like what wounds or what traumas were never yours, or which like loops, toxic loops you had recurring for lifetimes, right? And so it's all about learning these things so you can understand why you are the way you are and how to stop those cycles, right? But
Hmm.
then what I've also seen is, and I think we've all gone into this trap where you get into the trap of constantly thinking you have to continuously heal from something. Like
Yeah.
even that becomes a trap. Instead of getting to the point where like, you know what? What if I'm already healed?
Yeah.
And what if what's happening is just residue
Mhm.
from a reality that's collapsed?
Yeah. I'm really glad you brought this up because I feel like this is a topic that's also kind of reverberating in the spiritual circles right now of like, again, you have a spectrum, a group of individuals like the ones who are on quite like their healing journey and maybe they are still legitimately trying to go through some things and heal, but you don't need to forever be on that healing path. Like that's not the point. You recognize it, you're either ready to change or you're not, and then you move on from that. And everything that isn't a perfect happenstance, things that may not work out for you, doesn't mean you have a block. It doesn't always mean that. And you get stuck in that trap, like you're saying, of thinking like, oh, because this didn't work out for me, it must mean that something's wrong with me, that I haven't healed enough, when there are a million reasons why something doesn't work out. I mean, I do believe that the universe is always working for you and not against you, but it could just be a redirection of your soul plan. It could be as simple as that. Like you weren't meant to go down a certain path, you were meant to go down this path. So the universe might be helping redirect in some ways, not saying that you have to heal your way out of it because you want something so bad. So
Yeah.
I think that that's a really good point and it needs to be said. And there is a path after a healing journey and it should be fun. You should get to a point where you're just happy and you're just living your life and having a great time. You don't always, I say this all the time in my yoga class because people need to hear it and it's 100% true. Just because you feel emotions or you've lived in an emotion for a long time doesn't mean that that emotion has to become your identity. You can be sad, you can feel depression, and you can live with those things and in that frequency for a long time, but it doesn't make it yours. At any
Mhm.
point, you can decide to put it down and then
Yeah.
feel another emotion. Like emotions don't belong to you. You feel them and then you let it go. It doesn't have to be your identity.
Yeah. I think with our society, it's all about labeling, right? Like this is good, this is bad. But
Right.
what I've learned and what like my team kept telling me, emotions, it's like I'm an artist, right? So they told me the analogy of like paint. Like let's say red is suffering, right?
Mm-hmm.
But all the paints, all the emotions are equally valid. They just are. There's no right or wrong. And they told me, don't be afraid to paint with all the colors. So like you said, we came here to experience and we forget that. But at the same time, right, suffering, pain, sometimes you go through it because it's what builds you up, right? There's always something positive that benefits you, but suffering is optional, right? And it's also what you're telling the universe, what you're telling, if reality responds to you, then if you say that your illness or your whatever is your identity, then you're just telling the universe, you're telling reality that that's what you want to keep receiving unconsciously. So it's only giving you what you're asking for on some level, whether you're consciously aware of it or not.
Absolutely. It becomes a feedback loop. And I think people forget that, this experiencing life in a body, it has both sides. You're going to have these moments of disappointment or sadness, some really difficult moments in your life. And that's part of the human experience. But guess what else is part of the human experience? Pure joy, euphoria, love. Those are, like you said, equally important. And I think for some reason, everyone, and a lot of times in the spiritual space, I think this is true, everyone feels like they have to be a martyr. Like somehow they'll get bonus points or brownie points for living in suffering. And that doesn't have to be the case. It doesn't have to be true.
That's so true. Yeah. Oh wow, there's so much to unpack there. I'm trying to think about when you start talking, sometimes I start thinking about a million things. So I'm trying to really think about what to talk about. Oh, but one thing that I wanted to say, because I felt important to say, is that, like you said, right, it's just honoring everything. So it's also not shoving it down. Like what I've learned and what I'm learning is that you can have a memory come up. You can have these emotions come up, but just acknowledge it. Say, okay, like this happened, or okay, this is how I felt. But then say, what I've learned to say is, but I can hold on to the lesson, but I don't need to hold on to the memory anymore.
Yeah.
So then kind of visualizing, sometimes like if there's a memory that's specially charged, I'll kind of wrap it in gold, kind of like in a bubble. You can even do pink too. I mean, it depends what you feel, right? There's no wrong or right way with frequencies. And then I'll send it to God. And so that way it just neutralizes the charge. So it's not shoving it down, because the other thing is sometimes when you're trying to, I guess, come out the other side, you want to shove it down. Like I've done it before, and what I've learned is that if you shove it down, at some point later, you're going to have to acknowledge it, you know? So it's finding that neutrality and just being able to acknowledge it and let it go.
For sure. And I think too, like this is where I really have a soft spot in my heart for movements and what movements can do for for emotional release, for spirituality in general. Because I think when you are feeling things in your body, when you're moving your body and allowing energy to move through it, you a lot of times have, whether purposefully or inadvertently, some sort of spiritual experience. And a lot of times too, what I find is that when we are getting into compressions, or on the other side of that, like heart openers, where we're stretching fascia and things like that, we are moving a lot of that trapped emotion. Because I think too, culturally, I will say a lot of times we are taught that emotion equals weakness, or there's a time and a place to feel emotion. But every time you allow that to happen in your body, that emotion gets stored. And we're 70% water, and water has memory, and water moves through vibrational frequency, and there is emotion is tied into all of that. So a lot of times the fascia is where your emotions end up living in your body. So that tightness in your chest sometimes that you may not even realize, like that you're holding your breath or you're not taking full breaths, or maybe you have back pain. A lot of times it's the emotion that you refused to feel 6 months ago when your boss said something that really hurt your feelings, you know? And it's like those moments where things like movement and actually working through the emotion and allowing it to let go is what moves the needle. You're getting it out of your body, and then you're kind of starting over from that neutral point. And that I think is why I feel so strongly about spirituality being a physical practice, because you have to be able to feel your body and live in your body in order to have these experiences of release. Like, this is where true healing takes place. It's not all in your mind. It's not just in meditation. You have to move your body too.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. That's something that I learned. Because I've done a lot of work like releasing energetic blockages and all these things, but then I realized that it needed to be worked out of my body
Mhm.
as well. And there's so many ways to do that, right? And also just one before I lose this, is also understanding the complexity, like with the soul braiding, since a lot of times you can be bringing in things from parallel realities or in past lives. Sometimes you feel it as a physical sensation in your body, like waking up and all of a sudden feeling like a pain in a certain area of your body. And that's why movement is so important, right? Because when you really like move your body, whether it's stretching, whether it's yoga, whether it's running, whether, there's different ways to really move that out of your body. But when you start to do these things, it helps release like those imprints from your body that you're kind of bringing in as that aspect of yourself, of your consciousness comes back in.
Mhm.
And also, I was being told also there's something important about the breath, right? Like when you power walk or when you jog or when you run, it's the consistent breath helps release things, but also sweating, because the chemical process happens, right? Where it also releases imprints and emotions. So even like going to like profusely doing a workout that makes you profusely sweat, or going to like a sauna can also help. But I also found out, but there are things that can't be worked out by ourselves. Like, for example, I started like going to a chiropractor. And I've noticed, like, even just after the first session, I've noticed like that practitioner was able to get those parts that I couldn't get by myself. And I
Mhm.
could feel that energetic release. And that person was telling me that it's normal for during these sessions that someone involuntarily starts laughing or crying, because it's the emotion of it that probably was trapped in there for a long time.
Yeah.
And what I saw, it was kind of like our body is like, we have our nervous system. And so think about like like a circuitry, right? And so whenever, like, when we're not aligned, there are parts that like no longer are firing, And like what I noticed with chiropractor work is it readjusts you wherever you've been off balance. And so then the energy starts to flow in those areas again. And it's really cool. I don't know if you've ever done chiropractic work.
I have. I have so much to say on some of the things that you touched on, because I think you touched on so many important points here. So first, emotion lives in specific places in the body. And when we're talking about emotion or feelings that don't belong to us, I think one of the things I also like to tell my students is that you don't necessarily have to name where an emotion came from in order to release it. And to your point of you doing the soul braiding and bringing in things from past lives or from ancestral lines, a lot of times people, maybe they have a back pain that they've always had, or have, can't name where it came from or why they're feeling a particular way. And I think usually that is an indication of like maybe it doesn't belong to them. And I do. As a yoga instructor, we deal with spinal strengthening. That's like the primary, for me at least. I specialize in spine energetics. So the different parts of the spine hold different energies. For example, the thoracic spine is a center of emotional stagnation. Usually it is the mirror for your internal organs. Your internal organs store different emotions, and there's like a whole thing in a medical astrology. You can like go deeper into this. But the thoracic spine is also associated with your maternal ancestral line. So
Mhm.
you have no issues showing your emotion or releasing emotion, but maybe your mom or your grandmother or 5 generations back, there was a female in your ancestral line who was punished for showing emotion, who they weren't allowed to have emotions towards certain people or toward things that they loved, and they had to hold that in. And now you're here and you have back pain and you don't know why or where that comes from. It could very well be an ancestor. And the same thing with lower back pain. So lower back pain is connected to your paternal line. So it's the father's side, and usually associated with responsibility. And a lot of times I'll say if you have lower back pain, it can be associated with financial stress. And that is true, but it could also be just in general responsibility and having to take care of others. So it doesn't necessarily have to be financial stress, but maybe someone in your paternal line, generations past, lost everything they had and had a family and didn't know how to take care of them. And now that energy is sitting in your lower back.
Yeah, or even like the abandonment wounds, right? Like if the father wasn't present and then the mother had to take on a more male role,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
that also affects things.
So things like yoga, things like chiropractic work are releasing these energetic static points, moving the energy through and out of the body. And you don't have to name what it is. It doesn't really matter. But if you are feeling that release and you're feeling better because of it, then you've moved that energy out. Like you've created an access point for healing, not just in yourself, but in your entire ancestral line. So they're like the energetics gets really complex, and why ignoring it or ignoring the body is also you're bypassing it. This is like a form of spiritual bypassing, which to be honest, I have a lot of issues with even saying that, because there's a lot of, I feel like that's a hot topic that I don't necessarily want to get into, but I do think it's important to realize that the body is where your soul lives, and feeling these emotions and releasing these emotions is really important. And you can't really like go on this spiritual journey without acknowledging that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about. What um but when you're talking about the ancestral, one thing that I don't know just came to my mind was I also like did work like there were instances where I just sat down in meditation and I sat with my body and I asked myself, am I carrying something that's not mine? And then it's interesting because I could look at the specific, like I was told, oh, look at this organ. And I looked at the organ and I could see the energetic imprint of either from my maternal or paternal side. And then I asked what needed to be done to release that. And so, and like what frequencies to use, because it's really clearing it out. And then what can you replace it with something positive that you can, a positive frequency you can replace it with. But I also found that work to be really transformational. But like you were saying, right, you can do a lot of energetic work or work with an energetic practitioner, because sometimes you need that. But you also have to work with your body. You
Yeah.
have to do both,
Yeah.
really. And that's just so important. And I'm trying to see if oh, and one thing, because I have it in my notes, it's like what we talked about as being grounded in the body, right? So it's important to like to anchor yourself in the ground. And also connecting what I'm learning now, because I just had I received advice from from someone I know that I really respect. And they told me about that it's important to anchor now down into the ground, like connecting with the mycelium, so that the nervous system can learn to relax, that the nervous system can expand, can feel, but you're also putting the new story in that you feel, but you don't absorb,
Mm-hmm.
right? And also, really, it's about grounding it in your body, what you want to experience. It's not about trying to force an outcome outside of ourselves anymore. It's just about focusing on us, on our bodies, anchoring that in. So we're not also overwhelmed, because it's like when you become a conduit for higher energies, it needs a place to go. It's like electricity, right? It needs to have a place to land. So it's important to be grounded so that any excess energy is able to go to the ground, right? So it doesn't overwhelm and fry your system. Because
For
that's
sure.
another thing that a lot of people don't know about and have learned the hard way,
Yeah.
including me. So I
I will.
think, and so, sorry, before, just so I finish this point, but it's also about like keeping that within your own body, but also in your home, right? Like you can't control what happens outside of you. So it's about creating a sanctuary in your home where you can also hold those frequencies, right? Like have your boundaries and hold that.
Yeah. And that is a good point too. And we just finished cancer season, and I will say in my classes, what I was really trying to showcase to the yogis in my classes is that at the end of the day, your body is the home for your soul. So like one of the main questions I was asking them during practice is, are you nurturing that home? And what are you doing to keep that home clean and clear? And this is where we're really getting into the topic of intentionality.
Mm.
And you make a really good point about releasing, and grounding practice is really important. And grounding the body into the earth is really important. And, again, through movement, you can align your heart rate to the heart rate of the earth as you're lying down on your mat or on the floor or whatever you're doing. Like that is really substantial way to regulate your nervous system and the grounding, calming rates of what the earth is beating at. I will say though that there are different ways that people can regulate and release energy based on their moon sign.
Interesting.
And again, this is getting into, so this is like where I like to combine aspects of astrology with functional movement. So if you are an earth sign in your moon, so the moon sign, generally speaking, is about how you feel emotion and how you show emotion. And so going by the moon sign when it comes to regulation is really important. And if you're an earth sign, like if you are a Capricorn or maybe you're a Taurus, sitting in the grass and connecting with nature or grounding through your root chakra into the floor is going to be the best way to release stagnation and like an overabundance of energy. So if you're bringing in too much energy into your body, grounding in this way is going to be the best if you're an earth sign. But if you're an air sign, breath work might be a better way to release that extra energy. Like you had mentioned, breath work is one of the main ways that your body releases not only energy, but physically, that's how we release fat cells. That's how your body is regulating through your breath work. Your out breaths release physical and energetical particles from your body. And so, based on what your moon is, maybe if you're a Libra, for example, doing intentional breath work, and I call them aggressive exhales. When you're pushing the air out of your mouth and you're pushing the energy out that no longer serves you, that might be the best way for you. Now, I'm an Aries moon. And so sweating for me, like really high intensity movement and sweat is how I release energy best. And which is why, I mean, there's no surprise there. I'm a hot yoga instructor. So I am working out intensely, leading classes in a room that's 104 degrees. Like this is my bread and butter. And I think this is why like I love what I do and it's helping me help others. But at the end of the day, it fills my own cup up to be able to release my energy in that hot room through movement. And so a lot of the fire signs, doing sauna, doing hot yoga, working out outside, and doing really stimulating, like mentally and physically stimulating workouts are what is going to help push energy out. So that's just an example, right, of like different ways that you can expel energy. If you have an overabundance or if you're feeling like you're too much, this is how you self-regulate. Not to say that we don't all need to be grounding, because we do, but knowing your body and the astrology, the energy tied to your body is also going to help you with intentional movement regulation on your spiritual path. So you can kind of see how everything is interconnected.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I think you brought up so many great points. And I'm also, I feel like it's so important to just tap into your body, right? Because also sometimes like one technique will work really well, and then after like maybe a few weeks, and that you'll need another technique.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really like being present and attuned with your own body and asking what you need in that moment, right? Because sometimes for me, like I feel like I do all of those things, but in different points of time. Like for example, today, like I went on a run, and so I felt like I really had to do that. But then another day, I will feel like I have to take it more slow and just ground, maybe go outside, touch trees, touch the grass, So it really varies, but I think you bring up a lot of excellent points, but it's also trying to really, yes, the astrology is important, and I think it's a wonderful tool to use, but it's also really coming back to always asking ourselves first rather than outsourcing, because everyone's going to have a different opinion, right? And what I'm learning more and more is that we're shifting so much that even what worked yesterday doesn't work today. It's incredible. Like sometimes I wake up and I'm like, okay, I have to figure out like what my new reality is and like how it's different. Even my body it's just shifting like every day. So it's just so important to sit with yourself, right? And a lot of people don't know how to do that. They don't know how to sit with themselves in silence. And the body is so intuitive that if you sit with yourself in silence and tap into your own cells, you will be able to hear yourself speak. It's crazy, like, but once you can hear yourself speak, like it just will be a lot easier, because then you'll know, oh, like you're like, I sometimes my cells will tell me, please avoid eating this food today. Or it'll tell me today, please like up your magnesium intake. Because I also feel like since we're going through so many changes, especially those of us that are attuned to these things energetically, I feel like we tend to go through more minerals quickly. At least I noticed that with some of, my clients, people that I know that are like star seeds or light workers or all of that. And so recently I feel like I have to really increase my magnesium, my B12, and my potassium, that I go through those pretty quickly. I don't know if you've noticed any changes for you as well.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I'm generally not a supplement taker, but I would say over the last 3 to 6 months, I've started taking, I am generally chronically low in B6 and B12. And I take that every day as a supplement, liposomal, B12, B6. I also started taking liposomal glutathione, which
I haven't tried that yet.
I love it. And I do notice a difference in my body in terms of just brain fog and clarity and just energy in general. Glutathione is really good for your immune system. So I generally don't get sick anyways, but I do feel like in taking glutathione, my skin feels better, my hair feels better. Like I just feel like my body is functioning more optimally since starting on that. And and then a lot of times too, I sometimes will have like three oranges in a day just to like up my vitamin C. Like I've noticed that too. Like and I was never a person who like I really liked oranges or kiwis or anything like that, but I find myself gravitating toward foods that are high vitamin C. And I don't know if you
Yeah.
that, but I'm like, I need
Oh
vitamin C
my gosh.
in my life.
I'm so glad you brought that up because there's so much I want to talk about that. First of all, oranges, right? Not just high in vitamin C. They're like a superfood. They're high in vitamin C, they have magnesium, and they have potassium
Yeah.
all in one, which
Mm,
is so amazing. And I had a period too where I literally was eating oranges like for like 3 weeks in a row, like consecutively.
yeah.
Um,
Like
and
several
what's so
more than one a day, like a lot.
yeah, yeah. And what's so interesting is that since the past few months, because I also want to talk about how our gifts are changing, or we're getting more gifts now. And
Mhm.
so these past few months, I'll be eating, like I'll have a craving for something, I'll eat it, and then the fruit, sometimes like the fruit or the vegetable or the plant will
Mhm.
talk to me. And it'll tell me, oh, like I do this and I do that. So it's been mind blowing for me because it's been like, okay, this is what science tells you, like this fruit or food does. But then this is like the quantum level, like that, yes, like those are facts, right? But our realities are changing and information is getting updated
Yeah.
and it's changing. And so, for example, I'm trying to think, like, for example, there was a period where I was doing celery juice, like juices, like every morning for like maybe 2, 3 weeks because I felt like I really needed it. And celery told me that it helped protect, strengthen, and also restore the myelin sheath of the body, the neural connection. And that's just one of the things. And then oranges, I felt like giving life and vitality back, especially like with women, right? The creativity, like being able to, because our womb is our life force, right? Especially for women, that's like where things are birthed, not just human beings, people, but also that's where our projects are born, like all of these things. So it's really regaining that creativity, that vitality. And even like pineapple, recently I was eating pineapple and I was just craving it. I've been craving pineapple nonstop. And pineapple told me that it helped with self-confidence. So it's just really cool how like everything's changing, information's getting updated, and so it's really like you said, it's being intuitive. If that's what your body's craving, then that it's craving it for a reason.
Mhm.
And maybe more in more ways than one, not just for the vitamins, but also the plant itself has its own consciousness and its own medicine, right?
Yeah.
So,
Mhm. And I do want to touch on too. So, like, when it comes to physicality and intuition, like, there are ways that you can boost your intuition. Like, if people are struggling with connecting, or maybe because you have a profound gift with your intuition, and if people are unsure in their own gifts or connecting with their intuition, there are ways that you can connect and also clear out stagnation because those energy centers can get stagnant as well. So the third eye, like resting your forehead against the floor or against the wall, can also help massage through your pituitary glands, which can move stagnation. And the spleen. I'm a splenic projector, so I
oh, okay.
for um I I listen to my spleen. So that's just me. My spleen is the one that tells me things. And that's where like my intuition works from. The spleen is the main organ of your lymphatic system, which is responsible for detoxifying the body. And the spleen, so is really important anyways for detoxification. It's also, it's a feminine organ situated on the left side of the body and is connected to intuitive hits. So not just for splenic projectors, but in general, because of its ties to the lymphatic system. So doing like eating foods that are good for the spleen health, for compression practice through the spleen will help like detoxify and move lymph. Really any kind of lymphatic massage, also really good for your intuition. So the lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. You have to help move the toxins out of the body. And you do this through movement, through lymphatic massage, and also through the foods that you eat to help detoxify. So eating, really nutrient dense foods, fruits and vegetables are going to help with that detoxification process. So those are just a few ways too that you can, revitalize or revamp your intuition if you're feeling stuck.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, yeah, those are definitely really good points. And when you're talking about movement, just like an easy way to do that as well, like if you're not someone that exercises much, you can buy like the trampoline, like the indoor, like small trampolines. And just doing that like 5-10 minutes a day is really beneficial if you maybe don't have the capability yet to exercise more, right? That's just a simple way to do that. And you also touched upon the point of like how to increase your intuition.
Mhm.
And one thing I feel like I have to bring up just from my perspective is also that I feel like it's so important that before we really, because there's a lot of courses, right, that tell you, or I guess offerings that tell you activate your third eye, like
Yeah.
just do the kundalini, like, all like that stuff. But if the person has a lot of trauma that they haven't like unpacked, or if they have like attachments, right, that are caused, majority of times it's trauma. It's like some level of consent that you give consciously or unconsciously. But if you have attachments, if you have all of these things, it can be really traumatic to suddenly have all that turn on and seeing all of that because you don't know what you're dealing with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's so important to also cleanse the chakras first, especially the lower ones first, right? Because that is where especially with the root, but that's like where a lot of your fear is held, right? So if you clear that up, then you can see more clearly in a sustainable way without being so overwhelmed. Because I know some people have like a gentler experience, but when I awakened, my journey was to have experiences with both the light and the dark. And so my journey, when I began having conversations with God in 2021, my gifts went on like that, and I saw everything. And I'm thankful that I had like support to be able, and great teachers and mentors that helped me through that. But from personal experience, like if you don't know what you're doing, it can be really overwhelming. So, oh, let's wait. Hopefully she can get back on the call. Well, anyways, well, we're just gonna wait a little bit um until she gets back on the call. But yeah, it can be really overwhelming if you don't really know what you're doing and you're exposed in that way. And not everyone has that experience, right? But if that's part of your path to have the more accelerated course, then it's so important to work the lower areas of the chakras first. Oh, you're back.
There.
Yeah, what happened?
My internet just like went out. It's been doing
Well,
today. The weather is really bad here today. And so I've been losing power. Sorry about that.
oh, no worries. We're still recording.
Oh, okay. I it shouldn't happen again. Hopefully not. I can't, my phone does not really work on because I'm like surrounded by trees. So I'm gonna hope that the Wi-Fi stays.
yeah.
But
Okay.
good, right? You're still good?
Yeah,
Okay.
good. Well, I'm glad you're able to get back on.
Thank
But yeah,
you.
I was just finishing my thought of telling people how like, like I don't know what their journey is, right? Some people have a very like a smoother, I guess, journey, but some people like opt in on a soul level to take a really accelerated course. And that was my path. And so for someone like, and if you don't know if that's gonna happen to you, it's always good to address those areas first, right? Before just completely forcing the third eye to be wide open.
Sure, sure. Yeah, and again, that goes back to what you were saying about just asking the body. And I would never, and I think as like a point of principle, would never like force someone to try to do something physically that they don't feel ready for. Or like there's different depths, right? And different levels that you can go. Like you stop at your own comfort level. And that's why in yoga, for example, like there's always going to be different modifications that you can do, different levels of poses or exercises, because that is the last thing. You don't push, like that's not the point, right? You have
Mhm.
like, everyone is on their own specific journey and you have to respect that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I will
Um,
say,
mhm.
I have to mention because you had mentioned the trampoline, and I did get a vibration plate. And I wasn't sold on the vibration plates initially. Like, I just wasn't sure, but I did get one to try it out, and I actually love it. I love it for its ability to help reduce inflammation in the body. I feel so good. 10 minutes on the vibration plate and I feel like I can take over the world. So like I think that the vibration plate is a good tool for those who struggle with movements or who have issues. You can literally sit on a vibration plate and I
Yeah,
think get a lot of the benefits out of it. I love it. That's like one of my favorite new things that I've gotten lately.
yeah. No, it's been really good, especially for those days. You feel more, I think more lazy. It's just, it's like it's a softer, it's a more easier thing to do. I was thinking about the vibration plate actually, but I haven't gotten around to getting it because I have the trampoline. So, but I've heard that that one's really good too.
I like
Um,
kids use the vibration plate. They love it. There's something
I,
about the vibration. Not only does it help with inflammation, it really is regulating for the nervous system. And I
yeah.
also like if you find yourself like having trouble slowing your mind or sleeping at night, it actually really, I feel like it's regulating even hormonally too. Like I'm sold on it. I wasn't at first and I finally got one to try it and I really, really like it.
Can you tell me more about like regulating the hormones?
I don't know the science really behind it. That's just been my experience. Like the ability for me to, because a lot of times too, like when you have trouble with sleep or you have really high cortisol levels, your serotonin is low, like whatever it is about the vibrating plate, it just helps balance things out. That's been my experience. Like my cortisol levels, like because I can feel that in my body, right? The tension, feelings of anxiety and things like that tends to just literally bleed right out. 10 minutes on the vibration plate.
Wow. And so do you do that like before you go to bed?
Yeah, especially if I have trouble sleeping, because I'm kind of like, I do my mind, not even that my mind will race. I just have a problem, I think, like at bedtime to zone out the noise, like the peripheral noise that I tend to get at night. And I do, like, I have magnesium lotion, and I do other things too. But if I do the vibration plate in the afternoons or in the evenings, I find that I sleep better and I can get to sleep faster.
Interesting. I think that as we're all becoming more sensitive, I think sometimes the nervous system kind of can feel like, like something's
Yeah.
wrong. And so it's doing things that help remind the nervous system that it's okay and you can feel, but it's not about constricting anymore. It's like I said, you feel it, but you don't absorb it.
Yeah.
And so like recently I've been taking like passion flower at night because yeah, like if
Okay.
you are sensitive, right? It's like sometimes you need just additional like to remind your body of what it means to kind of go back to like to slow down, especially at night, because that's when everything's quiet. And if you're energetically attuned, that's when the veil is thinner.
Yeah. It gets super
Like, yeah, and your body senses it, right? So it's so important.
Yeah.
And I think what we were talking about clearing the body, it's so important that in order to be in touch with our intuition and make sure it's coming from like a good source or the right place. Many times I find that when you ask a question, if the answer is what you get from your head, it's probably not the right answer. But if it comes from your heart,
Yeah.
it tends to always be right. But also, as you know, there's so much cleanup happening, right? On so many different levels that there can be a lot of debris in the field, especially with like collective. Now there's like a lot of anger in the collective. There's a lot of scarcity mindset. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's all these things going on in the collective. So it's so important to also keep our energetic bodies and fields clean.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I did want to say is that I used to think keeping my energetic field and body clean was just doing showers or doing baths, like salt baths. I thought, or listening to some frequencies. I'm trying to think what else. I thought like doing that was enough. And then I learned I really wasn't cleaning myself. Like I really wasn't. And so what I've learned to do with mentors that I worked with is learn to really like go through the chakras and learn how to cleanse myself thoroughly, like each chakra, and then cleanse energetic body of stagnation, cleansing the field, and then reinforcing. It's so important to reinforce after you cleanse yourself, to always put in a positive frequency to fill it up, right? You never want to leave it empty.
Mm-hmm.
And then reinforcing your field, your boundaries with layers, right? Of your choosing or what you feel works best. Because especially at night, right? It's like you can start picking up things too. And so you want to make sure that when you go out into your day, that you just like you wouldn't let, I don't know, someone into your home, right? You have those boundaries energetically too, so that you can stay grounded in your day while you have your interactions. And then knowing that when you get home, that you can clear yourself so that you're not holding on to anything that isn't yours, and that you're clean, that the information that wants to come through will be able to come through easily and from a clear space instead of being distorted by all these, noises and static and just things that are going around. Because then as we can get an answer thinking it's the right answer and it's not.
Sure.
Because of that, because we have to just keep cleansing ourselves. So that's really important, and really asking, right, if you get an information, where does this come from? You can always ask, where does this information come from? Out of 1 to 100, is this how accurate is the information that I'm receiving right now? How accurate is it? So it's so important to just develop that, ask those questions, to develop that intuition and that discernment of like where you're getting your information to.
I think the discernment is so important, and it's hard, right? Like, because it is, for someone who isn't used to it or hasn't been working with their intuition for a long time, discernment becomes, that's like the main issue, right? Is like, where is it coming from? And, I appreciate your information on like all the clearing. I think having your field clear is so important, but also sometimes really difficult, especially when you're in the space trying to help others too. People who are coming to you for advice or you know, again, I'm going back to human design here. I'm a projector. So I every single time I'm interacting with someone, my aura is going into their space. And this isn't something I can help. This is just who I am. This is how it is. And I think a lot of energetic intuitives probably face the same kind of struggle. Is like, you know, you can create layers of protection when you connect with other people. Sometimes you can't help your aura and where it goes. And so one of the things that I like to do is I call my energy back to myself as often as possible to make sure that I'm contained. I also use talismans. So I
Mm-hmm.
regularly wear jewelry that also protects my aura and my energy. A lot of times, like things like onyx jewelry, bracelets or rings kind of help with that too, and just like creating a more robust like energetic barrier. And so I'm a huge proponent of crystal usage.
Mm-hmm.
Even in my home, like if it's not on my personal body, I keep crystals in my house, and I can dump, so to speak, energy that doesn't belong to me at the front door. So you can use specific crystals to serve that function too. And that really helps. And that helps keep the, you know, your energetic space clear. And I use sage as well. But again, everybody is different, and not everybody is going to, you know, you have to find what works for you. And that also the conversation about discernment and finding what's going to be your path.
But I think it's also important that when you're trying to figure out what works, it's doing it from a space of having boundaries and not a fear, right?
Oh,
Because
sure.
when you add the fear, it I think it also influences the kind of experiences you have, but
Mhm.
also can feed the things that you don't want, right? Accidentally. So
Sure.
it's doing it from a space of being in your power and your sovereignty, saying these are just boundaries that I have, like in my home and in my field. And also, you know, you can tell your team, like, hey, I don't want to experience this right now. I don't have the emotional, the mental, like whatever capacity. So please, like, I do not want to, and saying it, I don't want to feel anyone else's energies right now. But sometimes you have to feel like that's part of, I guess, being who you are. Sometimes you have to feel other people's energies because sometimes you're there to help shift something. And
Mhm.
so it's okay if you're going to do that, but also knowing how to take care of yourself and replenish yourself afterwards, right? Like drinking coconut water. I love drinking coconut water, like
My
after like
favorite thing. I love
yeah, like
it.
after sessions
Yeah.
or after being out in crowds. Like I have to be hydrated if I'm going to be out in crowds.
Yeah.
But you're just telling yourself a different story of like, okay, we feel it, but we don't absorb.
Hmm.
And so it's really just changing the codes little by little of saying, okay, we can do these things, but it doesn't have to affect us that way anymore.
Hmm.
But it's a whole process. Like what I'm saying is like I've been on this journey now for like 20, like maybe 20. I'm sorry, I've been in the journey for like 5 years. So obviously I've gone through different things to get to where I am now. And I keep learning and I keep growing, right? So I'm sure that what we talk about today, it's gonna need to be updated later, you know? Everything is shifting.
Yeah.
So, but I just wanted to bring that up, that it's important to not feed into the fear and to do it from a space of fear.
Feed the right wolf.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what else, if there's anything that
This is
we haven't talked about. I don't know, just one thing that I wrote, that I kind of want to touch on
okay.
before we finish. If you don't, do you have anything else that you want to add or something else you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, I feel good. I'm gonna let me turn. It's getting super dark here because I think it's about to storm again. And I feel like it's dark on my camera. So let me turn a light on really quick.
Yeah. Of course.
Oh my God, that's so much better.
Yeah.
It's getting like darker and darker and darker in my room. Okay.
So I feel like one thing that I also wanted to note here was that there's a lot of scarcity mindset being kind of bombarded at us right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I had like some people bring it up to my attention. Especially those of us that, we're trying to do this full time and we're being led to that. It's about putting ourselves out there. Like I think so many of us were like in hermit mode
Mm-hmm.
for a few years, maybe even decades. But now it feels like it's time for us. Like we're all being, not all of us, but a lot of us are being pushed to like start being out in society again
Mm-hmm.
and to start offering, our gifts in some capacity and just putting things out there. But there's that whole thing of scarcity mindset, right? A lot of people that make this leap, right? Like that quit their jobs to do or to do this kind of thing. And so I guess what came across was just that no matter what is being fed to the collective via media or different scare tactics, that those are on the path to 5D will always be taken care of in miraculous ways as they shift. Because I feel like the path to 5D, I know for some it's sudden, right? Like it's very instantaneous. But for many of us, I feel like it's a gradual, like there's some of us are taking our bodies with us. And that's why we're also going through all these changes, so we can adjust in frequencies. But it's to know that we're always going to be taken care of. It doesn't matter what people tell you, because people will tell you, oh no, you can't do this. Like, oh no, like the gas prices, the whatever, like, or like, oh no, how can you, like, no, there's no way you can do that. Like, you can't do this full time, or no, you shouldn't be charging for what you do. Like all these scare tactics that they use, right? And it's knowing that somehow you're always going to land on your feet. You're always going to be taken care of. That when you're truly aligned to your path and to divine will, then miraculous things are done so that you can do what you do. So
Yeah.
so you can be on your path and not be taken off, go off charts or whatever. I don't know how to say that, but yeah. And I just wanted to state that because I think that's so important, is to not listen to that noise that's telling us, that there's not enough, or that things are too expensive, or all these things are being fed at us when it's not true.
I love that you brought this up, and I have a couple of points I want to touch on that really relate to this. So really just recently, like I think earlier this week, I shared something on social media, and this was just a really vulnerable moment for me where I finally acknowledged something that had happened recently in my life and putting it out there for the greater collective so people could take it and use that story, hopefully as an inspiration to kind of combat this scarcity mindset that's kind of happening in the collective right now. I've worked as a TV producer for 20 years. I've been in this space for a long time, working in production. And I've also, have been a practicing witch for a long time as well, never crossing boundaries in any way. And I would say in the last couple of years have, because I've been feeling this pull to finally let myself be seen in ways that I hadn't previously. Like I always had somewhat of a wall built as protection, to protect myself. So never sharing the fact that I was an energetic intuitive. And, you know, even though I had this knowledge, like I would do tarot readings and things for friends, and I would do it within the space of my own home, never, ever had I shared this in a more collective sort of space, especially not on social media. And anything that I shared was strictly professional, especially when it came to my work in production. Well, within the last year, it just felt like the universe asked me to ramp things up in a way that I had not. And I had a vulnerable moment where like I shared with one of my production teams that I sage myself, and I I will sage on set, and doing some energetic practices for work. And they were completely receptive to it. And I started doing some rituals with my production teammates. So the director, the videographers, like we would all do this together. Like I would come onto set with sage, and I would sage everyone on set. I would sage the equipment. We would do like a little ritual together and go on about our day. I also started to do some weather magic practices. So I would do some rituals to improve the weather if we were working outside. And the amazing thing is that when the people I worked with started seeing a difference or an impact of what we were doing, like positive energy, the things would happen on set that just seemed completely unbelievable, like perfect occurrences, like timing was perfect for everything that we needed to happen would happen when I saged and when I did these energetic practices. So I made believers out of everyone that I worked with, and to the point where they started telling people about the work that we did on set and what an amazing impact it had on the work we were doing. So that just recently, I was working on a project on set, and the client asked me to do some weather magic for an event that they had coming up that we needed to film, which I did. And the weather ended up being great. And they've had years of bad weather for this event that they had annually. And I mean, I was getting text messages the day of the event that told me it was raining outside of their venue and it wasn't raining inside the venue. Like just incredible things. And the fact that all of this happened because I had a moment of vulnerability where I allowed myself to be fully seen. And I was so afraid for the longest time that, because this is my work, it would negatively impact my work, the jobs that I would get, opportunities that I would get. And what has actually happened is the complete opposite. It's been a complete opening up of opportunities and different kinds of people and clients who want to work with me because of the unique skill set that I have. So to combat this idea, the scarcity mindset of being vulnerable and then paying for it, I will challenge that the vulnerability is what's going to get you out of scarcity. It's going to give you so much more than the fear of not having it. And that at least has been my experience. And I think the way to combat it more than anything, stop listening to people who tell you otherwise. Honestly, I've stopped following every single person who's doom and gloom in any way. I turn my head and I go in the opposite direction. And I think that's part of it too. You just have to take that frequency out of your field. Yeah. And that's going to change things for you too.
And you have to be delusional in the sense of being like, why not? Why can't this happen?
Exactly.
Of course it can. Because we were just conditioned and programmed to believe that it couldn't. But that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And when you truly start believing in that, it just shifts everything. And also that maybe, okay, so many of us, like so many were persecuted in the past, right? And in past lives. But to know that now things are different. And you know what? Even if there is a danger, like even if it isn't safe, right? Like, as you know, like there's wars happening, there's all these things happening. But even if it isn't safe, but you're protected.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what's happening out there, you're protected.
Yeah.
And so you're always going to be fine. And I've witnessed that in my own life, and I've witnessed that with other starseeds, people like you that I've met, that I've seen how, like, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, how they've protected us. They've really protected us. And even when it felt like things were rough, we had that protection, you know? Like
Yeah.
maybe like that some of the things that we went through were part of our path, our mission. And even though to the human perspective, right, it's like, oh no, this is horrible. How could this person go through that?
Yeah.
But what if that was part of the divine plan? What if that was part of that person's mission? And even though they went through that bad thing, but they were protected while they were on their mission. And now things are different. And that
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what is happening around you, you're gonna be okay no matter what. And having that conviction and being like, okay, I'm not gonna play small anymore. Like even me doing this podcast, like getting over like I've like gotten over that fear of like, oh no, what are people gonna say? It's like who cares? Like people are gonna say what people are gonna say, but someone needs to hear this. This conversation that we're having is so valuable. Someone needs to hear this, and it needs to be accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's who this podcast or like this episode is for those people that are yearning for a change in their life and don't know where to begin. And we're making this information accessible just by talking on here. So that's what matters. Like, as long as you helped one person, that's it. And if God is happy with you, then who cares what someone else says? I only look for God's approval, and that's it. If God's happy with me, nothing else matters. Because a lot of times it's not, you know how people are, right? People's attention span. It's like they move from one thing to the next thing, one thing, like, so just to know that your work is being recognized, even if you think nobody sees it, but God sees you. God sees the work that you do. And that sooner or later, you will be recognized for your work. You are already recognized for your work in higher realms of existence. That you are, like, what you're doing is valuable.
Love that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much we can talk about, but I feel like this is a good, like,
No, I think that was like the perfect way to kind of end the conversation. It's so good.
yeah, I'm so grateful that we were able to do this. I'm just hopeful that this will reach the people that need it, and that this will be exactly what they need to hear at this moment. And yeah, I think this is a good place to stop. But before that, I guess I want to ask you, how can people, what are the services you provide, and what would be the best way to reach you? Either way, like everything will be in the description below, for those that are interested. But I guess I just wanted to ask you as well.
Yeah, thank you. So I do teach in-person yoga if anyone is local in Florida. I live on the West Coast in Bradenton. But I also provide a lot of information, insight, my medical astrology, functional movement information is on my Instagram handle, which is at in astro asana. And I also just started on Substack as well, and you can just find that by my name, Farah Vickery. So I'm excited about that and just sharing more of my knowledge. I think at the end of the day, like you said, just sharing more and creating a positive frequency and educating people who want to learn is like what I'm here for. So I'm excited to share this and hope that I see new faces on my social media as well.
Amazing. So nice. And I guess I'll do my part now. So yeah, so I have my website called quantumalexandra.com, and that has all the services that I offer, one-on-one services. And it also like shows you a little bit of like my channeled artwork, because I also have an Etsy shop right now. And I'm also like on all the social media platforms, but I'm really more active on Substack now. So if you want a more in-depth view than what I have normally on like Facebook and Instagram, Substack is the place to go. So you get more in-depth insights into what I'm seeing, the trends that I'm seeing, the things that I'm learning on this journey. There is just so much to unpack. Oh, and I also like wrote a new book called My Journey Through Ascension, which you see right here. I actually hand painted the cover myself. And so let's see. Okay, the camera got off. But the book basically talks about the things that I learned in my own spiritual and healing journey since I started having conversations with God. It's a combination. I'm not one of all the rules, so it has a combination of like poetry, of journal excerpts, and channeled messages from God and other higher vibrational beings that really wanted to share messages with those reading this book. And so I will put the link for those down below. So thank you again so much, Farah, for being on here. It was so lovely to talk with you. And thank you to all of you that have been listening in. If you have any questions or have any, I guess, insights from this meeting, I would love to hear them down in the comments below and just to see what you all think. This is the first of many to come. So thank you so much.
Thanks for
Bye.